I'm Shirley Harrington, and I've been a reader. I haven't looked at my licence, but I think it's about 20 years now. And I did not want to be a reader in the first place, I'm telling you. But God had other ideas. And I was at Cub Scout camp, and taking a little cub to wee in the middle of the night, and suddenly I had a funny 5 minutes with God. And I knew I had to train to be a reader, but I put it off for 5 years because it meant I was district commissioner. And it meant putting off my Cub Scouts, because to do the job properly, one had to go, if you see what I mean. But I found God's like a dog with a bone. If he wants something, he doesn't give up on it.
So what happened then? What were the funny 5 minutes?
It was just, I've great love for the Almighty, always have done since a very early age. And it was just the fact, I'd heard a preacher the week before, marvellous preacher, but I was sitting there. This sounds awful saying, I've never said it to anybody else. I was sitting there and he was talking about God. It must have been around about Easter time. And I was sitting there thinking, come on, for heaven's sake, tell the congregation that God loves us. It's important that God loves us. And this little voice up here said, well, you get up and do it. Now, I never hear voices, ever. And I've never seen anything, standing in front of me. But this voice was very clear, and it said, you do it. And I didn't quite know what it meant. But over the next 3 or 4 years, it gradually revealed itself. But I still said no, I wanted to do my Cub Scouting. And it was in the middle of this field at night, I knew I had to give in to it and go back and do something about it. And my vicar then said, I knew, he said it was coming, but he said it had to come from you. He said there was nothing I could do about it, you had to say yes.
And why reader ministry and not kind of ordained ministry?
God's never, I believe reader ministry is a calling. And God has never called me to be a priest, ever. I know that. I've never even had the vaguest feeling, get up and be a priest, go for training. But the reader ministry, for some reason or another, and I didn't know anything about it, was very, very clear and positive. Go for it. Which eventually I did, and loved every minute.
So what happened then? You were set on this course for reader ministry. What was the training like? And how did you approach that?
I can't remember what they called the course, but there was a 2-year course in Portsmouth. We called it the Christian Foundation course before you went on to be a reader. I can't remember what it was called down here, but it was a 2-year course which I did. And then I took a year off. I still wasn't sure about being a reader ministry because they weren't as accepted then, 20 years ago, as they are today. And it was as though we were all floundering around looking for something to do. No, the priest didn't seem to know. My vicar said to me, I wasn't trained to use a reader. And he said, I don't quite know what to do with you. But he said, I want you to be a reader, but I don't quite know what to do with you. But these past, 15 years, I say it's been non-stop. It's been absolutely marvellous because all my gifts lie with people. I used to be a policewoman, and that's why I joined the police force. And this is partly why I became a reader when I found out a bit more about it. It was involved with people. And funeral ministry in particular is my weak spot, is the positive part of my reader training. Okay, you've got to stand up and preach, and I always make sure somewhere in that sermon I tell the congregation that God loves you. But when it comes to funeral work and meeting up with the people involved and the bereaved, that's extra special. And I'm licensed to take funerals, and that is the important part of my funeral ministry, to be honest with you.
Right. And can you give us an example of taking a funeral, or a particular moment or highlight, if that's the word?
It's the thank yous that you get afterwards, because never once have I been asked. I always offer the prayer book service, and we go through it, and people say, well, can't you make it a bit more personal than that? So now, although I mention the prayer book, all the services I do are based around the family and the person that's died and their interests and all the rest of it. And the bouquets of flowers that have come my way are incredible. That sounds like I'm blowing my own trumpet. But I always say to God, before I start a service, please God, let me do it well for you and for the family. And only once have I ever felt that something had gone wrong. I don't know what it was. Something glitched somewhere, because I felt the atmosphere change in the church. And I knew I must have said or done something, but I still to this day don't know what it was. But otherwise, it's been so fruitful, my reader funeral ministry, that I always thank God for it. I really do. It's something I don't take for granted. It's a privilege.
And what would you say to someone who's perhaps considering becoming a reader?
Don't take it lightly. Whatever you do, you've got to give it your all. It's no good thinking, oh, I'll stand up there once a month and I'll preach and I'll do this. There's so much more to it than that. And you've got to know that it's a calling, that God has called you. It's not like, shall I look around and see what can I do to fill in my time on a Sunday and on a day during the week? You've got to know here that God's calling you to do it. And I think that's the most important thing. Don't take it casually, don't take it lightly, because God doesn't.